Hey guys, welcome to my context video. Before I start, I'd like to say a couple things. First of all, I apologize in advance for the poor audio quality. I know it's pretty terrible and subtitles will be provided throughout the video, so hopefully that helps. If you need clarification on anything I say, please just let me know and I'll be more than happy to clear that up for you. The other thing I wanted to give you advance notice of is that I mispronounced French words a few times in this, so please, I hope you can find it in your heart to excuse my terrible pronunciation. Now, without further delay, hello! And welcome to the wonderful world of whiteboard animation. I'm your narrator and artist-in-chief, and today we'll be covering a more historical topic, the June Rebellion. So, over the past couple of years, some of us have decided to take on the challenge of reading Les Miserables by Victor Hugo as our big fat novel. And in the book, as Jean Valjean does his thing, one of the main subplots deals with the rising French Revolution. This subplot escalates and escalates and escalates until, bam, war in the streets of Paris, and the start of the June Rebellion. Now, the June Rebellion was an actual event that happened during Victor Hugo's lifetime. It says that when it started, he was in a park not very far away, and at the sound of gunfire, rather than going back into his home, he ventured out into the streets of Paris to witness the action. That for inspiration, am I right? Anyway, the June Rebellion was something that had been in the pipes for years. In 1830, France had been declared a constitutional monarchy. Now, with any political change, the people weren't very happy. The most notable opposition groups were the Republicans and the Bonapartists. The former were opposed to the monarchy in general, and the latter wanted Napoleon on the throne. Even before this change, the political climate in France wasn't very stable. Its economy had been in shambles since the American Revolution, when France assisted the Patriots, costing them a lot of money, and food shortages and harvest failures had only made this economic debt worse. In early 1832, a cholera outbreak struck Paris. Rumors started spreading that the government was the cause of it, secretly poisoning wells. Some 18,000 people died. Among them, General Jean-Maximilien Lamarck. Remember that name. It'll be important soon. Alright, I'm going to pause for a second and take questions, just so we're on the same page. Okay, I hope that cleared up any questions you may have had. Now, to continue, remember General Lamarck? I hope so. It's only been a couple minutes, hopefully. Anyway, as a recap, he was one of 18,000 casualties from cholera in early 1832. Now, the general was very much a people's man. He was well known and loved by all people, including Parisians and refugees from Poland and other countries. Because of this, he had a public funeral. During the public funeral, the uprising started. Apparently, revolutions and funerals go together. Exhibit A, Julius Caesar. Exhibit B, the June Rebellion. At Lamarck's funeral, someone raised a red flag with the words La Liberté ou la Mort on it. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. It translates to liberty or death. Chaos ensued. At one point, Marquis de Lafayette, who you may know from his role in the American Revolution and or from the very popular hip-hop musical Hamilton, tried to calm down the crowd with a speech. That didn't work. 3,000 rebels proceeded to overtake many of Paris' eastern and central districts. At this point, a resistance of 40,000 men and the part-time Parisian militia were deployed against them. So the rebels had set up their base in the center of Paris, barricading the Rue Saint-Martin and the Rue Saint-Denis, two fairly narrow streets. The militia set up at the fringes of the city. Strategically, this put the rebels at a huge disadvantage. They were completely surrounded. The militia began to work its way inwards, fighting and defeating the rebels, until only a few remained, cornered at the Quatre Saint-Maurice. The rebels and militia clashed until the evening of June 6th, when the rebels were finally overrun. Shortly before this, then King of France, Louis Philippe, made his first appearance since this entire rebellion started. He formally declared a state of siege and walked through the areas where the rebels had been particularly strong in order to enforce the idea that the king was in control, not the rebels. In the end, there were 800 casualties between both sides. The militia had 73 deaths and 344 injuries out of 30,000 men, and the rebels had 93 deaths and 291 injuries out of 3,000 men. After the rebellion, there came the issue of keeping public opinion high. The French monarchy tried to play off the entire event and acted as if the rebels were only a very minor and extremist part of the French population. Trials were held, and many people who participated in the rebellion were either incarcerated or executed. These trials were held in public. The Republicans, who I mentioned earlier, took the opportunity to make their message known. They gave passionate speeches for their cause, rallying the French civilians to their side. However, the next major rebellion wouldn't happen until 1848, when King Louis Philippe was overthrown and executed. The new government didn't stay in power for very long either. In 1852, there was another set of political uprisings in France. The thing about the June Rebellion is that if Victor Hugo hadn't written about it in Les Mis, then it would have been likely forgotten by history. As far as contributing to the rebels' cause, it didn't have much of an effect in the long run. Obviously, witnessing the event truly meant something to Victor Hugo. Whether it was the bravery in sacrificing oneself to a cause, or whether the event was just traumatic and stuck with him, I don't know. But it obviously meant something to Victor Hugo, something important. The idea of sacrificing oneself for a cause and changing something major is a recurring idea in Les Mis. You see it with Jean Valjean, and you see it very much in the subplot as people rediscover themselves and their families. While we're on the topic of Victor Hugo's connection to the rebellion and the rebellion's role in the book, let's talk about it. Victor Hugo lived from 1802 to 1885, meaning he lived through a time of huge political unrest. He lived through the Troyon Rebellion, the July Revolution in 1830, the June Rebellion, the demonstrations of May 1848. He was alive as Napoleon seized power during the Prussian siege in 1870 and the Paris Commune in 1871. Needless to say, he's seen a lot of political uproars before his death. Hugo was very liberal in comparison to other people during his time, and that got him a lot of backlash. At one point, he was exiled from France for calling Napoleon III a traitor. He translates this into Les Mis quite often. There is clear bias in the scenes where politics is being discussed. Hugo doesn't support the monarchy very much, nor is he very fond of Napoleon by the sound of it. By writing from the viewpoint of some of the rebels, he presents their side very clearly, but the side of the monarchy is very muddled in comparison. Alright guys, well that does it for my presentation. I know it was short. Trust me, I'd make it longer, but my throat is telling me it's 12:30 in the morning, and also I'd like to be able to take questions. Thanks for watching, and fire away!